Welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us on this Wednesday. Busy day in and around Notre Dame land as we get into the show to start things off here today. It is a typical Wednesday is typically our mailbag day on Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. But today we've got some comments from Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman. We've also got some comments from Loren Landow, who is in charge of the performance operations for Notre Dame football. They used to call him the strength coach, but he is not him. That's what the position has commonly been referred to over the years is the strength coach. But he is the director of performance for the Notre Dame football team, Loren Landow. We'll hear some of his comments later in the show. We've got one specific comment that we're going to hear from Rob Hunt as well. He is the director of sports medicine, basically the medical side of the support staff, the performance staff there at Notre Dame. And he updated a slew of injuries today. So we will hear from Rob Hunt as well coming up here in just a few minutes. But, and again, we'll hear many comments from Marcus Freeman. But we have an unfortunate long list of injuries to update as Notre Dame gets ready for spring practice. Vince, the list, quite frankly, is much longer than I thought it was going to be, just based on little this and that's that we had heard. Jesse and I did our pre-spring breakout player draft yesterday, and there are many players on this injury list who we picked in our breakout draft yesterday who are doesn't sound like they're going to break out this spring after all is said and done.
I was going to say, did you have to completely redo your draft now because half your team is off or gone or whatever?
You might have to. Those are the rules of fantasy football, though, right? It's like
that's true.
Happens. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, let's go through who all is out and limited and all of those different things.
The list is long but distinguished, So here's what Rob Hunt, here are the guys that he said. We'll start off with limited activity. Drake Bowen, linebacker, due to a hip. Another linebacker, Madden Faremo, with a wrist. Another linebacker, Kahano Kia, with the knee. Offensive lineman Tyler Merrill has a shoulder, and running back Aeneas Williams with an elbow. Now, it had pretty much been Williams and a little bit of Kedron Young, who we had heard, in terms of potential spring limitations. Not a ton of other guys, but those are the limited activity guys over the course of spring. Leonard Moore with an ankle, Chris Tarrick foot injury, Jaden Greathouse with a hamstring are all going to be limited this weekend with minor tweaks and conditioning, but they should be a full go for the rest of the spring. Not good that Jaden Greathouse, who missed so much time with a severe hamstring injury during the season, is already a hamstring tweak here at the start of spring. I mean, just that's the one that kind of jumps out at me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping, obviously, to see Jaden Greathouse and, see him up and around and doing some stuff. And, obviously we haven't seen him in what seems like forever.
Yeah.
That one was a little disappointing. I will say that.
Now, here's those are just the partial, limited activity. Guys. Bowen, Faremo, Kia, Merrill, Williams, Moore, Tarrick, Greathouse. Those are the limited activity guys. And again, Moore, Tarrick, and Greathouse, they think it should just be this weekend. Then they're going to be seeing action for the rest of the spring. These are the guys who are out for all of spring. Cornerback, Kari Adams, linebacker Jacoby Clapper, offensive lineman Ashton Craig had an ACL injury during the season. Tiki Hola with an ACL. Charles Jagusah, and we're going to get into him more specifically here in a minute with a humerus. Running back Javion Osborne with a wrist. Wide receiver Quincy Porter with a patella injury. Wide receiver Braden Robinson with an ACL. Defensive lineman Gordy Solfstead with a shoulder. Linebacker Kingston Viliamu Asa with the ACL that he had last season. And Kedron Young, running back, also ACL last season. Those last two, KVA and Kedron Young, again, stuff that happened last year, and you can definitely understand why they wouldn't be practicing this spring. Rob Hunt said Kingston Viliamu-Asa will return sometime this fall. They don't have an exact timeline. Could be training camp, could be later than that, but they do expect KVA back at some point this fall. But again, long list of guys there, Vince, who are going to be out for the entirety of spring, including both Javian Osborne and Kedron Young, a couple of different running backs. And you also have Aeneas Williams with an elbow who's going to have limited activity. Doesn't leave a lot of running backs. And we'll get, again, specifically into that, some comments from Marcus Freeman. But, man, that is a banged up team heading into spring.
It is. I guess I'm just not that worried about it. It's spring. Like, if this was fall, the red flags would be flying all over the place for me. Like
safe
that.
Sorry, better be safe than sorry.
Yeah, and I think the line for whether they should practice or whether they should be out or whether they should be limited, I feel like the call to have them limited or be out altogether is like a quick one. Like it's not like these limited guys, if there was a game they'd play, like it's that kind of a thing. If some of these out guys, if it was the regular season, they would probably be available, kind of a deal, or maybe just limited in practice. Like, I feel like if it, like it's spring. Is it the end of the world that these guys aren't available? No. Is it unfortunate? 100%. Absolutely.
Especially for some of the specific guys because of opportunities this spring.
Right.
To show what they can do.
And, I'm trying to look at this from a coach's standpoint. And you always want to have all of your guys out there and competing and all of those different things. And, does it matter, that some guys are out and some guys, are in and whatever the case may be. I mean, it matters. But at the end of the day, they're still going to have all of summer and then hopefully all of, fall camp and that kind of a deal to earn a spot or to not earn a spot, as the case may be. And so it's not the end of the world, but, like my kid's going through his first spring and there's a bunch of walking wounded, there as well. And like, there's competitions and there's all these different things. My kid himself is on the shelf. And it's just like a little nagging thing. And it's like, well, if this was a game you'd play, but we're going to sit you down and you can just do some rehab and, things like, what I mean? So it's like, I feel like that line for like availability is way down here as opposed to like way up here, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You definitely don't want to push any injury too hard, too fast in the spring. You have had a longer off season of conditioning and stuff like that.
But it's unfortunate though. You want to see these guys and you want to see the competition and you want to, all of those things. And I would say just even in 2026, it just feels even less important to be around for spring than it ever was in the past. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
True. Very true. Well, I think the biggest news out of all this is the unfortunate situation with Charles Jagusah. And again, Rob Hunt. They had three people at the press conference today. Rob Hunt from the athletic training side of things. He is the director of sports medicine. They had Loren Landow, the football performance coach, in charge of all the conditioning, whether it's weightlifting or whatever else they do, all the different stuff, Loren Landow, and we'll hear some of his comments later. And we're going to hear from Marcus Freeman here in just a minute as well. But Rob Hunt, he's the one who did all the updates on the injuries at the press conference today. And I know there were some technical issues going on with the YouTube stream, so I'm not sure how much people actually got to, who were trying to watch the press conference got to see any of that. I think that was blotted out. But here is Rob Hunt explaining Charles Jagusah's ongoing injury situation today.
Jagusah, obviously everyone knows that he injured himself over the 4th of July weekend and had a really severe injury to his humerus. And I'm going to explain in a little bit more detail. He's had a bumpy road relatively in terms of that recovery. It's a complex injury and a severe injury, and he's had ups and downs through it. He's had 4 subsequent surgeries. He's got a final surgery today. But he had the injury itself. About 2 weeks afterwards, he had a clean out procedure just relative to his wound closure. So that was surgery number 2. In September, the hardware, due to the bone not healing, failed. So the hardware was exchanged in September. And we were hopeful at that time that the injury would begin to heal. It did not. In January, the hardware was taken out again, and we were able to identify some infection that was in there, probably from the initial injury. So he's gone through extensive antibiotics and antibiotic seeding into the bone. That hardware now is going to go back in, so the bone will be grafted again today, and we're extremely hopeful. We're really optimistic. We think that the infection was probably inhibiting some of his bone growth, and now he's in a position without infection. The bone will be grafted and stabilized, and this will allow him to fully heal. He's got more to go. There's a lot more rehab involved. There's a lot more time that he's got to put in there, but he's gone through a lot. And again, we're really optimistic. We do think that he'll return, but his timeline, as we kind of shared at the early onset, is undetermined at this point.
Okay, so again, there's Rob Hunt from the athletic training side of things, the director of sports medicine at Notre Dame, detailing everything Charles Jagusah has gone through. And again, I know some of that was a little more ambient, just like the sound of the audio, so might have been hard to make out. But Charles Jagusah, since having that injury in the ATV, 4th of July, 4 surgeries that he's had, and today he was scheduled to have another procedure today. They had trouble with the hardware. There was some infection in there that they had to deal with, so that like the hardware had to be taken out and then new hardware put back in, and they're still trying to get things to heal at this point. But Rob Hunt did say he's very optimistic. And I can also say, as the father of a daughter who has had several back surgeries and hip surgeries and, hardware put in every time, like during these surgeries, it is very common for that stuff to get infected, once it is in there. I like, based on the experiences that we've had, because again, we're talking multiple surgeries she's had. Like I think now the surgeons will tell you otherwise. The surgeons want to claim that they've got perfect records of no infections and all this stuff. But based on, all the things that she's had, like, it is much more infrequent that there is not some kind of post-op infection than, like just skating through clean with nothing going on. I can tell you, wound vacs and this and that and everything else. So Charles Jagusah, just again, over the course of, it's less than a year. It's only been the 4th of July. It hasn't even been a full year.
It's true.
So 4 surgeries plus infection, hardware removed, put back in, all this different stuff. He has gone through a lot in the course of about 8-9 months or whatever it is now at this point.
Well, and that's just the physical side. I mean, I can't even imagine the mental side where they're just like, oh, you broke your arm, we'll get you healed up and, you'll be right back at it. And no, 4 surgeries later and hardware infections and everything else, and they're still dealing with it. So that's just not a great situation to be a part of, obviously. And, obviously we're not going to jump to any conclusions. They are very confident that he's going to be back. And so we can only go with what Rob says. And, he's obviously a lot closer to the situation than any of us. And he says that he's going to be back. Then I believe that he's going to be back. There's some people in the chat that are saying he'll never play again, and all these different things.
Antoine says he needs to seriously consider retiring because he keeps having surgeries and injuries. He needs to think about life after football. I mean, I think that he's still in the process right now of just trying to get back, like he's in it. He wants to play. And I think that is obviously an individual thing, because the other side of this is he is also ultra talented and a guy who from the, even before stepping foot on campus was sort of circled for a potential long-time, very successful NFL career, let alone college career. So I don't think he's going to give it up just yet, especially if he thinks in the medical staff thinks that this is something that he can recover from. It's just a very, sort of fluky situation, because we're also talking multiple things that have happened to him. And obviously the ATV thing being
That's
something
super
completely
fluky.
away from football. Yeah.
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 Yeah, because it was knees and stuff like that before, like actual football related injuries, and this ATV thing. I mean, I don't think that it's going to be career ending. It's just unfortunate the way that they've gone about it. So he's going to have this coming year, and then he'll have another year of eligibility after that, and potentially even more after that because of all the injuries that he's incurred. So how long will he stay at Notre Dame if he can stay healthy and all of those different things? And so I just let's all just wait and see how it goes. Again, Rob Hunt seems to be very optimistic. I have no reason to not believe Rob Hunt. So I'm going to go with what he has to say.
Yeah. Someone was asking, what year he is. He is technically going into
His senior year.
Fourth, his senior year at Notre Dame. But he has only played in a handful of games. He played in 2 games as a true freshman. Remember the Stanford game and Oregon State. He played in 3 games in 2024. Those were all during the college football playoffs. As Vince has pointed out a couple times, he's never played. Well, one time in the regular season he has played. That was minimal snaps at Stanford a couple of years ago.
Right.
But he missed all of 2025 due to injury. So I guess he's got at least 2, potentially 3 years of eligibility remaining because of where he is now, because he's going into his 4th year now. So he would probably have to petition the NCAA to get that 6th year if he wanted to. But, the biggest thing now, obviously, is just getting healthy.
Right.
And getting on
at
some point.
Who knows? You see all these guys, coming back for their 7th and 8th year and all kinds of other nonsense. And, because they just keep getting injured. Well, he hasn't played because he's gotten injured a bunch of times. And so, look, if he can get a year under his belt where he's completely healthy, I don't think he sticks around Notre Dame. I think he would probably take his chances.
Why would you? I mean, if he has a good enough, if he's healthy and he gets on the field and he's good enough, with all the with the injury history that he's got, get out as quick as you can and start making that big money in the 100%. NFL.
That's exactly what I would do as well. So but he's gonna have to have a year of good health, and he's gonna have to pass physicals and all of those different things. And if he can do that, he's not going to be petitioning for multiple years at Notre Dame. But again, he's going to have to be healthy for a whole season. So
yeah, and the big thing too, again, as more people just keep saying, "Well, he's done. He's never going to look." He's got to get healthy, but he's also going to have to, because of everything that's gone on. He can't have much upper body strength right now. So he's got to get healthy enough to come close to being able to play. Then he's got to be healthy enough to start lifting weight again and doing those things to try to build up his upper body and even his lower body, because you can't squat, you can't clean, you can't do any of those things. Well, you've got that kind of serious injury to your arm. So there's he's going to have to build his body back up. That'll be after he gets healthy enough. They feel like he's able to start doing those kind of activities. What kind of strength does he have? So it's far from a short-term type deal. Even if he is able to come back, this still sounds like much more a long-term play for Charles Jagusah, unfortunately.
Agreed. Yeah, it's still a long road to get done if he needs to having surgery today, for goodness sake. So yeah, it's going to take a minute, and we can all be hopeful that he comes back. But basically every depth chart, every conversation that we've had about the offensive line does not include him, and they're going to be just fine as far as a team is concerned. But him individually, of course, you want him to come back and be healthy and all of those things. So it'll just be a bonus if he's able to be a part of this offensive line in the 2016.
Now, on the injury side of things, as we kind of shift out of the Jagusah conversation, a lot of comments from Marcus Freeman, the head coach today at Notre Dame, and the running back room hit hard. Again, you've got a couple of guys, Javian Osborne and Kedron Young, both out for the spring, and then Aeneas Williams limited for the spring. So Marcus Freeman was asked about, okay, so what do you do with the running back room? Because you already had a relatively light amount of numbers, and you've got 3 guys who are going to be out now. So he says that they've had to make some additions. Here's what Freeman said about that.
I had to add some depth there just to practice. And so we got a couple new guys that joined the teams. We got a couple walk-ons to join the team. We had tryouts, and they'll help us in terms of numbers, because obviously to be able to run the ball, yeah, it's the guy with the ball in his hands, but those big guys up front and the wideouts blocking on the perimeter all contribute to the success running the football. And so, okay, maybe we have a guy that might not be competing to be our starting running back carrying the ball. We can still evaluate and really improve those guys that will be blocking for the running back. And so the guys that are healthy, they'll get plenty of opportunities, but we can't kill them either, right? We can't, put so much load on those guys that they have diminishing returns. And so we have to be able to spread the workload. And one of the important things for us to do is to get a couple guys at least could give us reps so we can practice and develop the depth of our team.
Yeah, so with those injuries and the three guys being out, you only had Nolan James and Jonas Walton in terms of guys you were planning on being there. So they had to have walk-on tryouts, Vince. So they've added some. I don't know who's walking around on campus, but like to be, a running back, even a walk-on running back at Notre Dame, you've got to have, like a little bit of size, a little bit of something in you. Maybe there are enough guys who are playing high school running back who are going to Notre Dame. They did used to have inter-hall stuff, so there's some guys there. But I will, I guess, say this: a couple of guys walked onto the Notre Dame football team, and they're now going to be considered running backs. And so they went from being a student to they're getting paychecks now for playing football because of, rev share and everything.
I guess that's a possibility. Yeah.
It's not a possibility. It's a fact. Like if you're on a roster now, you're getting rev share. There are no more true walk-ons. So like their entry point was going through a walk-on tryout. But if you're on a roster now in college, you're getting rev share money as well.
Good for them. I mean, it's just on the same day that we find out that, tuition is going to be covered for low-income families at Notre Dame. These guys are going to have their tuition covered too. And look, people are jumping off a cliff on this one, thinking that, Rudy is going to be suiting up in the backfield and playing against Wisconsin.
Remember, this is spring.
Correct. And they basically need enough bodies so that they can run 3 teams out there. Like that's what this is. This is not a situation where they're going to be taking first team reps. They're not going to take first team reps at all, period. But this is just so that they can fill a roster and fill a depth chart in the spring. Now, good for them. Like, touche to them, because you're right. They are going to be pulling a paycheck and they get to be a part of the Notre Dame football team and all of those kinds of things. That's awesome. Good for them. But at the end of the day, you're never going to see those players on the field outside of the blue gold game.
Yeah. And just because, people listening, there are some injuries to the running back room, and that's why they're having to do this. Again, this is spring. You still have Nolan James, who people thought pretty highly of. You still have Jonas Walton, who people feel pretty highly of. And again, this is spring practice. Like Keidron Young tore his ACL during training camp last year. And would you want to push him back in the spring just to go through practices? No. If he's not ready to go, then he's not ready to go. Like by the time training camp rolls around, fall training camp, August we're talking about, that's a completely different story. And it's still an ACL, so you never want to push guys back any sooner than you have to there. Javian Osborne, a wrist injury. We don't know how severe that is, but again, I think it's more along the lines of this is spring, so there's no reason, like even if there was a break and, he had to put on a cast, you do that during the season, depending on who you are. There are times that, like you're still going to go out and play if you're wearing a cast, if you have something like that.
Right.
And then the other injury, again, is Aeneas Williams, who's got an elbow injury, but he is on the limited activity list for spring. So he'll still be doing some things, but again, it's spring.
Why take the chance?
And I think, as you said before, it's spring. And if this was a regular game week, maybe Williams is getting ready to go. But why would you take a chance at this point in the middle of March?
If there's any boo-boos or, any chance that you could re-aggravate something or whatever, guess what? You're sitting out spring ball. Like I as a coach, I'm absolutely doing that. I am not pushing it so that I can see some made-up competition during spring. Like I don't care about spring as a coach. I care about the fall. And so you're sitting out. Like that's it. You're sitting out. And, and I don't know the severity of some of these injuries and things like that, but judging by the number of guys that are out, including in the running back room and the guys that are limited and things like that, they have a very low bar for sitting out, which is what they should do. And if it's all it's going to cost you is some rev share for some walk-ons, that's a price I'm willing to pay.
Absolutely.
Antoine
says he thinks Williams is limited because he's the surefire number one running back. I mean, again, like maybe that factors into it because again, why would you risk something in the spring,
right?
When like regardless of who it's going to be, whether he's a starter or a number two guy or whatever, there's no reason
to be important.
Yeah, there's no reason to push it in the spring if you don't have to because it's a contact tackle sport.
That's exactly right. And if he's the surefire, I don't think he's the surefire number. I think he's the number one right now. And you and I talked about this, on Monday. Is he going to be the number one all season? Whatever. But he's going to play, and he's going to play a lot no matter if he's the number one or if he's the number two. He's going to play a ton. And so you still don't want to push it to where he's not going to be available at all. So, yeah.
Let's take a timeout. When we come back, we'll hear more from Marcus Freeman from his press conference today, some comments from the Notre Dame head football coach. Linebacker is another position that is impacted this spring due to some of these injuries. We'll hear his comments on that and more coming up when we return. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. I'm Sean Stiers, along with Vince D'Addario. Marcus Freeman press conference earlier today. We've got some more comments that we're going to hear from him. We've been talking about the fact that Marcus Freeman said that they had to go out and get some walk-ons. They had walk-on tryouts to add some running backs because of some injuries this spring that are going to keep some guys, some of the running backs, out of action to different degrees this spring. And I think there's a little confusion, Vince, about, you know, we're used to calling it walk-on and what they are now because of the scholarships, like
right.
Tamiza Pizapu, whatever that is.
I like that.
Is that a name?
I don't know.
In the YouTube chat, if they got a scholarship, wouldn't that negate calling them walk-ons? Joe says, but I thought the rule was 105 roster limit. All were on scholarships. Yes. Vince is shaking his head, but like,
well, the
roster limit, but they're not at the limit right now. The one at spring, so you lost a bunch of guys to graduation and transfer portal, so they're not at the 105 limit now, and the 105 limit doesn't count until the season starts. So you can have more than that on your roster in the spring and summer. But the rule is once you are on the roster, yes, you're no longer considered a quote unquote walk-on. You essentially earned your way onto the squad by going through tryouts, which we've for a million years called walk-on tryouts. So whatever you want to call it, like,
well, I mean, they can still have walk-ons. So, like, there's schools out there that are like, look, we're going to have 85 scholarships still, and they can still have 105 players on the team. They don't all get scholarshiped. Like, you don't have to scholarship them. It's just a roster limit.
No, you do. You have to scholarship anyone.
I don't think so. I don't think that's accurate. I really don't.
You have to give money to anyone who is on your roster.
You can give them rev share, but I don't think they have to be scholarshiped.
That I don't know.
Because there's local schools like MAC schools and so they're not giving out 105 scholarships, but they've got preferred walk-on spots and stuff still. So like,
well, that's because not everyone is meeting the full rev share, though. I think that again, we're a little bit in the weeds on it. I don't want to get hung up on that. The bottom line is, guys tried out and they added guys,
and they're getting money. Like they're getting money. It just might not be in the form of a scholarship. Like that's the deal. So they're getting money, and they're still walk-ons. So,
but you don't call them walk-ons anymore. Is my point.
I mean,
they don't call them walk-ons, Vince, because like on the basketball team, the players who got on the team as walk-ons, they're not considered walk-ons anymore.
Okay.
Like I've asked that specific. They're not called walk-ons. Once you're on the team, you're not considered a walk-on anymore.
How are kids getting preferred walk-on spots then?
Again,
I don't understand that. I don't get it.
I don't want to get hung up on this.
Okay.
Yeah, but limited time to like. I don't want to get hung up in a pedantic conversation about what a walk-on is and what a walk-on isn't. Like there are more important things to talk about. They're on the team now. That's like the rest of it really doesn't matter.
Right. Yep.
That's my whole point. They're
on the team. Agreed.
Right. So linebacker position impacted by injuries as well. So how's Marcus Freeman dealing with that this spring?
We haven't added any walk-ons in that room. And, you know, as you look at majority of the time right now, not just college football, but if we're facing our offense, you'll see a lot of 11 personnel. So if we're seeing 11 personnel, you're going to see nickel. So you're only going to see two backers on the field. So you're not going to maybe see as much rotating as you would if everybody was healthy. But I think we have plenty of depth there. And if, you know, our offense is going to go 12 personnel and get big, then maybe we only have two groups because we don't have enough linebackers to go three groups of three linebackers. So we just got to be intentional about that. You know, Jack, you asked a question earlier about practice and what are we doing specifically. That's another thing we're doing is that we're doing a little bit of OD emphasis. That's something we haven't been able to do previously. So, hey, our offense can dictate what the defense is doing for a certain amount of plays because it might not be something our defense does every game, right, or in its normal package, but our offense needs to see it. Same thing, our defense needs to see this 12, 13 personnel. So they get the emphasis here. And so I think that's another thing that we're doing we probably haven't been able to do in the past in spring ball.
All right. So, again, if you missed it earlier from the linebacker point of view, Kingston Viliamu-Asa and Jacoby Clapper, who is a freshman, they are both out for the entirety of spring with different injuries. Drake Bowen, Madden Faramo, Kahano Kia, they are all limited activity this spring. So that's 5 linebackers.
It's a lot
right there. And it was an interesting explanation just in terms of kind of the numbers of linebackers, I guess, that you need, Vince.
Well, and it's not even just the number. It's like the front level guys are, you know, a bunch of those guys are out. It feels like, you know what I mean? And, you know, there's guys at the bottom of the roster who can fill in, you know, and be on that third team or be a rotator on the second team. And it's not really going to make that much of a difference, but 5 guys being either out or limited is a big number. I mean, there's no two ways about it because I'm looking at the roster right now, the spring roster, at least the one they gave us. It's obviously going to change since they've added some running backs. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 listed linebackers on the roster. And now you're down to 6, potentially, right? Because you're taking 5 out. 11 minus 5 is 6. And so, yeah, you might not be able to go past the second team if you're using 3 linebackers. And that second team is going to be guys who are formally walk-on guys. So, and that's just the way it is. And so it's about bodies and it's about numbers and it's about being able to do it. I would be surprised to see the defense go with 3 linebackers very often because of this.
Yeah. And again, this spring, like this, you know, again,
in the spring. Yes. In the spring. 100%.
Exactly.
Like, and that's what we all have to keep remembering. This is still just the spring. And the 3
and
guys.
It's the start of spring as well.
Correct.
That can happen before April 25th.
15 practices, like that's a month and a half. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. Good and bad. But a lot of things can happen in that amount of time. And, you know, to your point, like the guys that are quote unquote limited are these high level guys that would be starting or in the rotation and things like that. Whereas if they were playing a game right now, they would probably be available.
Right. And also Kingston Viliamu-Asa, because he tore his ACL later in the season last year, he was going to be out this spring no matter what. We didn't know if there would be any, like, you know, maybe he's back doing a little bit of something, but he's out and you expected him to be out at least to whatever degree. So again, like that doesn't send off any alarm bells. And it's just, you know, the whole thing with this long list of injuries is it's spring. So there's, you know, you just have to kind of take it with a grain of salt and you can't let any like big alarm bells go off or any of that. That just means there's going to be more questions to ask once fall training camp starts.
Yeah, seriously. We might get a repeat visit from Rob Hunt, which is usually
do we
the case.
Get Rob Hunt again at the start of fall training camp?
We get him every spring. We do get him every spring. That's the one time a year you're guaranteed to get Rob Hunt. We might get him again in the fall because of all these names. But,
I think Marcus Freeman likes that, so he doesn't have to stand up there and answer injury questions.
I think it's great because as a head coach and you've got over 100 guys on your roster to remember all of the injuries and the specifics and leave that to the guys that actually deal with that all day. I think that's great.
Exactly. Okay. So again, we're not talking, we're not going there. Backwards in this show.
we're not going there.
About scholarships and walk-ons anymore. We're past that. So you're whistling into the wind if you want to post about that in the chat. Knowledge is power to whatever extent. Okay, quarterbacks. Marcus Freeman talked about quarterbacks today and how they find the reps for Blake Hebert and Noah Grubbs this spring. Obviously, CJ Carr being the number 1.
Obviously, you know, CJ will get the reps with the ones. But, you know, how do you have threes at certain positions and you don't. So we have to be intentional about where can we script drills or periods where we have a third group and where can we only have 2 groups. And if we only have 2 groups, now we have to rotate those guys with the second group. And so
I think I played the wrong cut, didn't I?
Uh-oh.
No, I didn't. I did play
that. That was sounding good.
Okay, I'm going to play it again.
Last spring, when you have 3 quarterbacks in a true quarterback battle, it's about how you're intentional with scripting practice to get the right amount of looks or reps to evaluate for the guys that are in competition. And so CJ has to get his work in. We know that. But also we got to see how Blake and Noah handle their opportunities in practice, and we got to be intentional about the way we script it.
Okay. There you go. Any thoughts on that, Vince?
My thoughts are I'm glad we're not talking about quarterbacks a whole bunch like we had to a year ago at this time. But no, he's absolutely right, because if you're going to designate somebody as the quote unquote third team quarterback, they're just not going to get a lot of reps. And so you're basically going to have to split. You're going to have to add up the second and third team reps and then split them down the middle, essentially, between those two guys. And it's a battle for second place, and speaking of all of these injuries, I'm glad we're not talking about CJ Carr being injured, because that would be a completely different conversation that we would be having. Can you imagine? Yeah, can you imagine how much the chat would be blowing up if it was CJ Carr that was injured? But I don't want to go down that road. But I think there's more twos than there are 3 reps, and so you do have to be very specific about how you're going to do those, and because there is a competition for the number 2 spot for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll hear some of these other comments now from Marcus Freeman. There is a competition for number 2, but part of the deal as well, like Hebert and Grubbs are getting reps this spring, but that's the decision for who's going to be the backup isn't going to be made until at probably the end of fall training camp, I would
Agreed.
imagine, at some point, because of the fact that Teddy Gerard is showing up this summer. And Gerard, of course, reclassified. He was supposed to be a 2027 recruit. He is still a junior in high school right now, but he's going to finish up his degree, and then he is going to arrive on campus at Notre Dame this summer because of the fact that he has reclassified to 2026 instead of 2027, and he's going to be part of that as well. And so Freeman, this was really the first time since Gerard has signed on the dotted line that Freeman has had the chance to actually talk about that decision to reclassify and kind of what he brings to the party once he gets here.
It was something that Teddy had brought up to us and his family, and they felt like it was right for him. And then we had to have dialogue with our admissions to see if this was possible. And when everybody gave the thumbs up, again, we want to try to keep 4 quarterbacks on scholarship. And so, bringing him in June, we felt there's enough, spread between Blake going into his second year, and then Noah being here in January, Teddy will be here in June. And at the end of the day, you'll let him compete. But we wouldn't have signed Teddy if we didn't think he was a great player. He's a really, really good player. He's a Notre Dame kid. He understands the things this place stands for, and he's gonna have a great career. Looking forward to see what he does when he gets here.
Yep. So again, Teddy Gerard will be here this summer, and I think that how you run a battle for the backup spot with 3 guys we thought that a battle for the number 1 spot with 3 guys last spring was complicated. How you find reps for the battle for number 2 between 3 guys, that's got to look really complicated.
It's going to be interesting because what if one of the 2 guys this spring really put some distance between him and the other guy? That's a definite possibility. And maybe he kind of lassos up to number 2, and they feel good enough to say, okay, well, so-and-so is going to be number 2. Now we're going to have a battle for number 3, and what that looks like. And so, but having 3 guys is going to be tough. You're basically going to have to designate, okay, well, you're going to be number 2 today. You're going to be number 3 today. You're going to be number 4, and then just rotate it, and you can take that competition, in my opinion, further into fall camp than you did the starting quarterback competition, because with the starter, they took it almost too far last year, and it was like, okay, well, they're going to have enough time with the number 1s and blah, blah, blah. You can take longer for the number 2 and maybe not even have it designated necessarily going into game number 1. It can drag on for a little while, but you're going to have to be very specific about how you do it to make sure you've got enough film and you've got enough, data to decide who the number 2, 3, and 4 are going to be. And that 4 is usually going to end up being the scout team guy.
Yeah, exactly right. So a lot's going to happen between now and then, but if nothing else, I think this spring gives Hebert or Grubbs,
Yes.
just the early opportunity to kind of maybe separate a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult, and I could be very, very wrong on this, but I think it's going to be difficult for Teddy to come in June and really just lay claim to the number 2 spot. I think it's going to be tough. Maybe he can. Maybe he is that good, but coming in as basically a 17-year-old, and defeating guys that are 2 and 1 year older than you and just being that much better that he's named number 2.
Yeah.
I think that's an uphill climb. So we're going to get some answers, I think, in the spring.
It feels like that is something it's going to take a full season just sort of being in the system and practicing and going through those things where like maybe you can start to pull even by the end of the season behind the scenes and then going into next off season, maybe you can be part of that. But yeah, like seems like a pretty big ask to get on campus in June for summer workouts and go through a few things and then go into your first fall camp without ever having a spring camp under your belt and being able to be ready to be the number 2 by the time the end of August rolls around.
Teddy is early enrolling so that he can get a year under his belt so that he can actually compete to be the starter going into 27.
Yes.
If CJ Carr decides to leave. Like that's why he's here. Whether he's the number 2, the 3, the 4, I think that's inconsequential to what happens in 27. You know what I mean? He just wants to be on even playing field with those other 2 guys if there's a 3-man competition for the starting job next year.
Exactly. And this kind of came up today as well. The difference between finding the guy who's going to be QB2 this season and finding the potential quarterback of the future after CJ Carr is gone, those are 2 different things. And Freeman discussed that a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're going to have a 3-way battle for who's going to be the backup quarterback because at some point before the season starts, you have to name a backup quarterback because the backup quarterback, if CJ stays healthy, the backup quarterback at any moment can be the starter. So that guy has to know, prepare, and take all the 2 reps in practice. But that doesn't mean you're going to be the starter next year, right? We need to make sure that we name a backup quarterback for the start of the season. When that time comes. But the competition of who's going to be the starting quarterback next year is going to go all the way until there is no doubt who that person is.
I mean, he didn't say it.
He didn't say it, but come on. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, what I was going to say, it's basically like the difference between when Riley Leonard was here,
Bingo.
Steve Angeli was the backup quarterback, but everyone knew that it was going to be CJ Carr, Kenny Minchie, in 2025. And
most people knew.
Well, you're right. I can't say everyone. But what happened? Because Angeli was the backup, that led people to different assumptions, and everything else. And we had that conversation. There's going to be a lot of that conversation going on next year. Let's be honest. But, yeah, I mean, it's really the same type scenario there where just because you were number 2 during the season didn't mean that made you number 1 once Riley Leonard was gone or, once this year's starter is gone. They're 2 different conversations.
It's 100% correct. And we don't have to go that, like you said, we don't have to go back that far in the old time machine to see that that's not the correct assumption, And so they're going to name a backup, and then there's going to be a competition if CJ Carr decides to leave early for the NFL. And the way Marcus Freeman was talking, he's assuming CJ Carr is leaving for the NFL because he's like, there's going to be a competition for next year's quarterback spot. If CJ Carr comes back, there's no competition. But if he doesn't, which is what everybody anticipates is going to happen because of all the projections for this year and the high level of expectations and all of those things, there isn't going to be a CJ Carr, and there is going to be a 3-man competition for the starting quarterback job. And we'll be right back where we were last year, and that's okay, I guess.
Absolutely. Just pause, rewind, fast forward, whatever you want to do.
Right.
That's right. All right, we're going to go ahead and take our break now because, again, we have a short show tonight. We'll be done before 6:30 tonight because of first 4 NCAA tournament basketball. Got some more comments from Marcus Freeman that we will let you hear to start off the 6 o'clock hour, and a couple comments from Loren Landow. One kind of was a little bit humorous. I don't know how much you were able to watch when you were doing your day job today, Vince, but we'll have that for you coming up in the 6 o'clock hour. More Marcus Freeman and a little Loren Landow coming up. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's hour number 2 of the show, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Sean Stiers, along with Vince D'Addario. Short show tonight because we've got NCAA tournament first four basketball action coming up once again tonight. Did you watch any first four last night, Vince?
Not even one dribble.
Not a drop.
I watched the WBC last night and was obviously disappointed when it ended. But it was a good game. It just the United States had no offense, and then all of a sudden Bryce Harper crushes a 2-run bomb. It's tied up in the bottom of the ninth, and then they give up the go-ahead run in the top of the ninth, and it was like wah, wah. But hey, that's what I watched.
And once again, the Kansas City Royals factor into a defeat of the U.S. Salvador Perez, catcher, after Pasquantino and the other boys, Bobby Witt from the Royals, also on the U.S. team. A lot of Royals
did not help very much in that game.
No, not in that game specifically.
Not in that game, and neither did Pete Crow Armstrong. He didn't start. He came in, had 2 at-bats, and popped up both times, and there's just no offense. That was the problem. No offense whatsoever. So it's tough.
The at least somewhat anticipated Charles Barkley, Dick Vitale pairing in the Texas NC State first four game last night. It was entertaining to some extent. I know they got kind of, carried away, and people were talking about the fact that they, just started rambling on, basically doing a podcast while there was a basketball game going on, talking about NIL and just a lot of other things other than the game that was actually taking place. But the play-by-play guy, Brian Anderson, he had some laryngitis. His voice was not good last night. And so I think that's kind of, like Barkley and Vitale were probably going to do their own thing anyway. But I think the fact that Brian Anderson's voice was in the shape that it was probably, gave them a little bit more license to kind of do their own thing and just keep on talking about a lot of different things. That would I've been in that situation before. It is not fun to be a play-by-play guy with a raspy, hoarse voice like that trying to get through. So
that's tough. Yeah, there
was some entertainment. It was fun.
Good.
Dick Vitale got to, finally do his first March Madness game ever. So that was kind of cool. Before we get into some more Marcus Freeman comment, the Associated Press did put out its women's basketball All-American teams today. Joseph is asking, why was Hannah Hidalgo named the second team? Why not the first team? And here's the first team. Sarah Strong from UConn, Michaela Blakes from Vanderbilt, Lauren Betts from UCLA, Madison Booker from Texas, and AZ Fudd from UConn. So you've got a couple UConn players, a Texas player, a UCL player, and a Vanderbilt player. And I think the common tie there is 4 of the 5 players named to the first team are playing for teams that are number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament, and Blakes from Vanderbilt is playing for a 2 seed. So I feel like when this is a voting process. People who are connected to the Associated Press and are considered Associated Press reporters, they vote on this. And so I think that to a big extent, the success of the team played into this. Hidalgo named to the second team. Olivia Miles, interestingly, named to the second team. And then you've also got Joyce Edwards from South Carolina, Audie Crooks from Iowa State, and Jelani Cambridge from Ohio State, who Notre Dame could potentially play next Monday if both Notre Dame and Ohio State win. And so that's, the long and the short of it is, regardless of the numbers Hidalgo put up, the voting was largely along the lines of how good is your team? The best players from the best teams ended up being on the first team. So,
it's not right. It's not they're not placed correctly, but I also understand why they were where they are. You just said it. You laid it right out, and it's absolutely accurate. That's just, we see this all the time with national awards. A lot of it has to do with how good your team is. It just does. And, look at the Heisman Trophy, for example. I'm sorry, there is no argument to me that Jeremiah Love is a better football player than Fernando Mendoza.
Right.
Fernando Mendoza was on an undefeated team that ended up winning the national championship, and he's going to go number 1 in the draft because he's a quarterback. Jeremiah Love's best player in the draft. Not going to go number one. So it's just here we are.
Just the way it goes.
Yeah,
just the way it goes.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't know. Notre Dame has been waging that Player of the Year award campaign for the last few weeks now, and it just feels like when you see voting like this that there's a great chance that National Player of the Year voting is going to go that direction as well. To win it, like Sarah Strong from the start for UConn has been talked about for Player of the Year. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
By the way, Notre Dame women, 2:00 Saturday afternoon against Fairfield in Columbus, Ohio, in their first round game of the NCAA tournament, right here on Sports Radio WSBT and the Notre Dame Radio Network, which includes the Odyssey app, AUDACY.
Yes.
Got that coming up.
Tune in, baby.
All right. We've got a few minutes to go here. Some more comments from Marcus Freeman from his press conference today. His pre-spring conference first practice is this Friday, but one of the questions that came up, Christian Gray and the nickel position, and if Christian Gray is truly a candidate for that spot.
Option. We're going to play him at nickel. We'll play Dallas Golden at nickel. We sprinkled a couple guys there through football school. Just again, we're not super deep right now at the DB position, period. And so we got to be able to rotate guys at different positions. But we feel confident that Christian can play nickel. We obviously know Dallas can do it, and we're going to rotate those guys both inside and outside.
All right, so Dallas Golden and Christian Gray, rotate them inside and outside. I think that nickel is potentially a great spot for Christian Gray, because I think that with his size, his length, I think he's got the kind of physicality that he could really thrive there. And, like maybe some of the shortcomings that he has on the outside don't appear as much playing in that spot. It really seems to be a lot about comfort. So we'll see exactly how he adapts, and obviously what Dallas Golden can do as well. But like I said, I feel like this could be a great spot for Gray.
Oh, I do too. And I think having them both cross-train at both positions is also really smart. I mean, hey, let's see who is the best fit where. It's kind of like, we kind of know who the 5 best offensive linemen are. Got to put them in the best spot. I think Golden and Gray are 2 of the best, corners that they've got on the team. Let's find the best spot. Like, I think that's what it is to me. And, and Christian Gray obviously has had his ups and downs in a Notre Dame uniform, but he's still one of the better players that's in that room. And he also has been around. Like, he has dealt with everything that you can deal with as a corner. So he brings that leadership ability as well. You want him on the field. And so what is the best way to utilize his talents and all of that? I think having him cross-train at both of those positions is really smart. And the same thing with Dallas Golden. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Leave no doubt has become the offseason mantra for Notre Dame. So how are they putting that leave no doubt into practice right now?
I want it more than anything to be an everyday mindset. I want it to be an everyday mindset that we leave no doubt that we made the most of what we had today. And if you accumulate that over the course of months and months and months, we'll see if we left no doubt that we reached our full potential. But talking about that, it's just a phrase right now, right? It's just, hey, leave no doubt. But I came with that when I don't want to lose. How do I use that situation that happened in December and not lose it? Right? I think you lose it when you blame somebody else for the situation you have. It is so easy to blame somebody. That's with human nature. Let's blame the CFP committee. Let's blame X, Y, and Z for what happened. But when we own it and we say, you know what, we left out. We sleep in the bed that we made, that we left out that we should be in the playoffs. Then I think you can use it, right? You can use it in motivation. You can use it in terms of everyday struggles. And so that's kind of the mindset of the thought process of when I kind of said that. But I want them to use it today. You left no doubt that you made the most of this opportunity you had today. Remember, we had football school today. You leave no doubt that you were the best version of yourself today, and then Today will be yesterday, and tomorrow we got to leave no doubt. And so, but I can use that. And why am I not playing? You left doubt? Why am I not the starter? You left doubt. Leave no doubt. We're not going to make decisions. You make the decision. Leave no doubt in decisions that need to be made. And so I think we can use that as individuals. We can use that as a team. We can use that in life. Like, leave no doubt. It's up to us. It's up to me, not up to somebody else.
That's a lot of words to explain leave no doubt.
It is a lot of words, and it's like it's perfectly just laid out for everything he's going to say all season. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like every team meeting, every breakdown at the end of practice, like it was just like gifted to him. Now through adversity, obviously at the end of last year, but this whole thing has just been gifted to him. Like I half expected him to say at the beginning there, like, hey man, this is a great phrase. It's going to look great on our t-shirts. But you know, we actually have to do it as well.
Well, see, and that's the thing. It's got to be more than just a slogan on a t-shirt. It's got to be more than just a catchphrase. You actually have to put it into practice, like in everything that you do. And so, you know, again, kind of having fun with it. You know, it is a lot of words to explain the whole thing, but literally that's how you've got to go about your business. And that message, you can start to tune it out once it becomes a longer term deal, because we're still only a couple months into the off season at this point. But, you know, like for that not to just to become gray noise, you literally have to figure out a way to put that into practice every day. So it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're going to get sick of hearing it. Leave no doubt. But if they actually do leave no doubt, then good things are going to happen in the postseason as well for this team. And that would be great. But yeah, we're going to hear a lot of that moving forward for sure.
All right. I'm trying to decide which I'm going to go with this one because I think you might enjoy this.
All right. You had like 87 clips
I know
scheduled, so I don't know which way we're going with this one.
I know there was a long list and I didn't know exactly how much we were going to get to, but there are one or two that we probably won't get to here today. But Freeman has talked about how the pain, you know, kind of a little bit on this leave no doubt kind of trail there, connection. The pain Notre Dame experienced in missing the playoffs, and it's not just the pain of the players and the coaches who are on the roster and on the team in 2025 that they experienced, but it becomes the pain of the incoming freshmen and the transfer players and the new coaches and everyone else who is now part of the program. And he had an interesting analogy on this. I don't know if you've heard this yet. So, all right. Here we go.
How do you relate the things we ask you to do in the game of football to real life? Because there's so many parallels. And using that example into a marriage, right? And that, you know what, there's expectations in relationships. And that at least that goes for my house, right? And me and my wife, and I've often said if she does not like somebody, I might not dislike that person, but I can't be friends with them. I have to go home and see her no, I can't. There's expectations there. And so we have to get the new coaches, the new players, the ones that weren't here to understand that relationship. Like, we're in a relationship. This is a family. This is a brotherhood. So certain things that have happened in our past, they happen to you too. Right? You have to be able to keep that pain. You have to feel that pain that we had when they told us that we didn't make the playoffs. And you can't sit here and go, that was them. No, that was us. Like, when you come here, I don't care if you're here for a year or for 5 years or 6 years, you join, you put everything in the past aside and you said, I'm joining this family and this brotherhood. And that's what I mean when I say it. It's a way of getting them to say, you know what, I'm choosing to put Notre Dame in front of myself. Right? My journey to Notre Dame might have been different than Coach Freeman's journey, but we're all in this thing together now. So some of the traumatic things that have happened in the past, right, they happened to us. And so we have to use that in certain situations. We talk about motivating, we talk about choosing hard and those type of things. Like, we have to use that. And so I think more than anything is getting them a way to say, you know what, put self away. I'm putting family and putting Notre Dame in front of myself.
I mean, I don't think he could have picked a better way to
That's
explain
fantastic.
it. Could he?
Look, there was there's a reason that Marcus Freeman held a press conference in January or whenever it was after
Right.
that.
Yes.
Marcus Freeman was mad, but I can guarantee you somebody else was a lot
Although
more
I was
mad.
mad too.
So there's,
That's right.
I mean, it's a great analogy. That was fantastic, and he is so right by that. Anybody that's been married for any kind of period of time or been in a long-term relationship, if your significant other doesn't like somebody, you're not going to be friends.
Like them.
That is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And if it does, you get what you deserve at that point.
That's true too.
So, but it's funny.
But I'm the same way,
Yeah, for sure.
If if my friend's got a beef with somebody
Yep.
else, it's not just like, well, okay, you're my friend, but that's your beef. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to be buddies with them. Like the closer you are, the more it's like, it's we're in this whole thing together. And
Look,
you do hear some of that, like when we've talked to some of these guys, who are just coming in the door, whether again, the freshmen, the transfer portal players and stuff like that. It's like they're already talking about, we were left out of the playoffs, like those kind of things. They've said that kind of stuff. It's not they were left out. It's like we were. I'm here and I'm part of this and I'm feeling this. So I think that they do a really good job of sort of communicating that, conveying that, because they all do feel that.
Look, there's a reason I don't like Colin Cowherd. Okay,
it started with me,
100%. And there's more than one reason, but there's another reason that I don't like another person that was in the radio industry locally, because you hated him, and I'm on board. Like, I'm on board. So let's go.
But it started from the other direction. Like, to be fair,
100%. But this is a ride or die situation. Okay,
That's
like
right.
I'm all in on it. So I'm here for some good hate. Like, I'm in. So
petty is as petty does, baby.
that's all I'm saying. See, it pays off to have a petty friend. Okay, like I'm just saying.
That's very true. All right, I want to get to at least one Loren Landow comment before we wrap things up here today in just a few minutes. But Loren Landow, Notre Dame's director of football performance, also, he kicked off the press conference today, fielding some different questions about a few different things. One of them was about injuries, and I'm not going to try to paraphrase the question that was asked. I left it in. This is Tim Priester asking Loren Landow. I didn't get this queued up and ready to go. I got to get this in my thing here. Okay, here it is. Tim Priester asking Loren Landow about injuries and the narrative around injuries. I thought this was interesting.
There's a narrative within your profession as it relates to your profession at Notre Dame and your role, that the players that aren't injured, you're doing a good job. The players that are injured, you're not doing a good job. What is reality? What can you control and what can't you control?
Well, like anything on that topic, I'm going to leave to Rob Hunt. But this is a chaotic, physical, violent sport. It is. I don't know what else you want.
I think we all fully realize that, but that's why I'm saying it's a narrative that's kind of on the outside.
Yeah, that's for the outside to paint that picture if they want to.
So, question asked. I thought maybe there'd be a little bit more explanation in the answer, but it's a violent sport, Vince. The long and short of it from Loren Landow.
That is why Loren Landow doesn't do press conferences, right there. And that was a typical strength coach response.
Right.
I will say
pass
that.
it off. I'm going to leave it to the guy who's in charge of injuries, which is the sports medicine guy.
Correct.
I'm not even going to touch that.
I think look, the question had to be asked, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. Like, it was a good question by Tim.
No, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And the way he phrased it, it's like,
yeah, absolutely.
As long as nobody's injured, it's.
But it's like, I also want to be like, what did you expect? There's a really, really good strength coach at the high school that I work with, and he's nationally recognized and all those things. If I would have asked him the exact same question, that's the answer I would have gotten, with maybe a couple of swears involved. You know what I mean? Like that's a strength coach. Like that's what you're going to get. So I think it's great question. Even better answer, frankly. You know what I mean? Like
I
that's
thought so as well.
It's great.
I thought so as well.
Narrative within your profession, as it relates to your profession at Notre Dame and your role, that the players that aren't injured, you're doing a good job. The players that are injured, you're not doing a good job. What is reality? What can you control and what can't you control?
Well, like anything on that topic, I'm going to leave to Rob Hunt. But this is a chaotic, physical, violent sport. It is.
Dead air.
I don't know what else you want.
That's the best part. He just stops talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Nothing else after that.
Oh, everybody was waiting for a follow-up and he got nothing.
Perfect.
That was awesome.
Tamiza Pizapu. We still haven't figured out. Is that like something spelled backwards? He says, I've been to 26 No Doubt concerts.
Leave no
Don't
doubt.
speak. Don't speak. Antoine wants to know if your son is in competition to be the starter at Hillsdale.
Well, he started the last 6 games of the season, and his main competition transferred out, if that tells you anything. So I think he realized that spot was not going to be taken back.
All right.
So, yeah, he's doing good. He's doing really good.
So things are shaping up well for sophomore season.
Yep. Things are looking good. He's, he's home on spring break. So I don't want to say too many nice things about him because he might hear them. We don't need that in the house.
You know, it's funny you brought up that Cowherd situation because I forgot, like you were with me when we were at the other radio station when that whole thing happened. And there were, it wasn't just like, oh, I hate listening to Colin. Like there was some literal behind the scenes back and forth between Colin Cowherd and our radio station, which, not this station, but the station, it was an ESPN affiliate. And we put on a local show in place of Colin Cowherd because Tony Kornheiser was on before Cowherd. Kornheiser left the radio show. They brought along Cowherd and we preempted it with our own local show. Cowherd was not happy about it, threw a fit on the air, directing different barbs and jabs at both Notre Dame and us and everything else. And so it was all kind of downhill from there. So, and like Cowherd does, he said a lot of non-factual things in his accusations that were completely false, which is just that's typical par for the course for Colin Cowherd. So that's where all that stemmed from. I
love it.
You just stirred up
I'm here for it.
Bee's hive.
I'm here for it, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. And that's kind of going to do it for the rest of the week as well. I'll be traveling tomorrow, Notre Dame women's basketball. Vince and Jesse will be back Monday. Hopefully I won't because that means I'm calling my basketball game. So,
what time is that game at? Is it now that I've totally
we don't know what Monday time will be.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. All right, that's going to do it. We'll talk to you later. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.